In the long and storied history of the National Hockey League, we often celebrate the same legendary names: Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Bobby Orr, and Gordie Howe. These icons rightfully earned their place in hockey lore through remarkable statistics, championship victories, and highlight reel moments that changed the game forever. But hockey's rich tapestry includes countless players whose contributions went largely unnoticed by the casual fan, yet whose impact on the ice was profound and lasting. What makes a player truly underrated in hockey is not simply about being good but overlooked. Rather, it's about players whose skills and contributions significantly outweighed the recognition they received during and after their careers. Some toiled on struggling teams where individual excellence was overshadowed by collective failure. Others specialized in aspects of the game that don't translate to eye-catching statistics or spectacular highlights. And some simply played in eras or markets where their brilliance wasn't properly documented or appreciated by the broader hockey world. The NHL's history is filled with these extraordinary talents who never received proper recognition. Players who coaches relied upon in critical situations. Players whose teammates understood their value even when fans and media did not. Players who might not have filled trophy cases or broke scoring records, but who changed the outcome of games through intelligence, positioning, defensive awareness, and selfless play. As we explore these overlooked heroes of hockey, we'll discover that greatness in the NHL comes in many forms. The spotlight may shine brightest on the 50-goal scorers and highlight reel playmakers, but championships and team success are often built on the backs of these underappreciated stalwarts. Their stories deserve to be told, their contributions acknowledged, and their place in hockey history secured, not as footnotes, but as essential chapters in the NHL's ongoing story. When we talk about hockey greatness, defense rarely gets the same attention as offensive brilliance. This oversight has left some of the game's most impactful players in relative obscurity compared to their high-scoring counterparts. The defensive stalwarts of the NHL have often been the backbone of championship teams, yet their contributions remain underappreciated in hockey's historical narrative. Jere Lehtinen of the Dallas Stars embodied defensive excellence throughout his career. The Finnish forward won the Zelka Trophy as the league's best offensive forward 3 times, yet his name rarely appears in discussions of the best two-way players in NHL history. Lehtinen was instrumental in Dallas's 1999 Stanley Cup victory, consistently shutting down opposing teams' top scorers while contributing reliable offensive numbers. His positioning was flawless, his stick work precise, and his hockey intelligence exceptional. Despite these qualities, Lehtinen's career has largely faded from memory outside of Dallas, a testament to how defensive specialists often go underappreciated. Bouwmeester built his career on remarkable consistency and durability before finally winning a Stanley Cup with St. Louis in 2019. 4 years, Bouwmeester was among the NHL's most reliable defensemen, logging heavy minutes against top opposition while rarely making mistakes. His smooth skating and positional awareness allowed him to defend without taking penalties, a subtlety that often goes unnoticed by casual observers. Before injuries slowed him late in his career, Bouwmeester set an Iron Man streak of 737 consecutive games played, the longest by a defenseman in NHL history. Despite his excellence, Bouwmeester's quiet demeanor and focus on defensive responsibility kept him from receiving the recognition his play deserved. While Nicklas Lidstrom made the Hockey Hall of Fame and won 7 Norris trophies as the NHL's best defenseman, he still warrants mention as someone whose greatness was somehow underappreciated relative to his actual impact. The Swedish defenseman transformed position with his calm efficiency and flawless positioning. Teammates and coaches marveled at how Lidstrom could control games without seeming to break a sweat or make spectacular plays. His nickname, the Perfect Human, spoke to his consistency and excellence in all facets of the game. Despite his accolades, many hockey experts argue that Lidstrom's true value exceeded even his impressive trophy collection. In an era that celebrated big hits and offensive defensemen, Lidstrom's subtle mastery of positioning and puck movement represented a different kind of greatness, one that changed how the position is played but didn't always translate to highlight reels. These defensive specialists remind us that hockey excellence isn't always about flashy plays or gaudy statistics. The ability to neutralize opposing stars, to be in the right place consistently, and to make the simple play under pressure. These qualities form the foundation of winning hockey, even if they don't capture the imagination of fans in the same way as offensive brilliance. The most complete players in hockey are often those who excel at both ends of the ice, yet a two-way forward rarely receives the same acclaim as pure goal scorers. These players sacrifice personal statistics for team success, taking on difficult defensive assignments while still contributing offensively. Their value to winning teams is immeasurable, even if their contributions don't always show up on score sheets or in highlight packages. Guy Carbonneau defined the modern defensive forward during his years with the Montreal Canadiens. A three-time Selke Trophy winner, Carbonneau made a career of shutting down the opposition's best players while adding timely offense. He was instrumental in Montreal's Stanley Cup victories in 1986 and 1993, providing leadership and defensive conscience to talented teams. Despite his importance to championship squads, Carbonneau waited until 2019 to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, a 16-year wait that underscores how defensive specialists are often overlooked. Coaches and teammates understood his value implicitly. When the game was on a line and a lead needed protection, Carbonneau was the player they wanted on the ice. Patrice Bergeron of the Boston Bruins built a career on excellence in all facets of the game. With 5 Selke trophies to his name, Bergeron established himself as perhaps the best defensive forward of his generation, yet his offensive contributions and leadership were equally valuable to Boston's success. His face-off prowess, positioning, and hockey intelligence made him the prototype for the modern two-way center. Playing through injuries during playoff runs, including a punctured lung and separated shoulder in the 2013 Stanley Cup Final, Bergeron demonstrated the quiet toughness that defined his career. Though respected throughout the league, Bergeron's impact on games consistently exceeded the recognition he received from casual fans who focus on higher-scoring players. Dave Kean anchored the Toronto Maple Leafs during their last great dynasty in the 1960s, winning 4 Stanley Cups while playing a complete game that was decades ahead of its time. Kean combined offensive responsibility with offensive creativity in ways that weren't fully appreciated in an era before advanced statistics. His skating and puck handling allowed him to control play in all 3 zones, and his discipline was legendary. He never received a major penalty in his 15-year NHL career. Though he won the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP in 1967, Kean's contributions were often overshadowed by flashier teammates and opponents. His delayed entry into the Hockey Hall of Fame and the Maple Leafs' slow recognition of his greatness reflect how two-way excellence can go undervalued even by those who benefit most from it. These two-way forwards remind us that hockey's most valuable players aren't always as most celebrated. The willingness to commit to defensive responsibilities while still driving offensive play represents a special kind of hockey intelligence and character. While goal scorers receive the glory, these complete players often make the difference between winning and losing when games matter most. Not all great offensive players in NHL history have been properly recognized with trophies or Hall of Fame inductions. Some prolific point producers have seen their accomplishments overshadowed by playing in smaller markets, during eras dominated by other superstars, or on teams that failed to achieve playoff success. These offensive talents put up impressive numbers throughout their careers, but never received the hardware or recognition that their statistical achievements would seem to warrant. Pierre Turgeon amassed 1,327 points over his NHL career, a total that places him among the top 40 scorers in league history. Despite this impressive production, Turgeon received minimal recognition during and after his playing days. He made just 4 All-Star Game appearances and was never a finalist for the Hart Trophy as league MVP. Turgeon's 58-goal, 132-point season with the Islanders in 1992-93 stands as one of the great individual performances of that decade, yet has largely been forgotten in hockey lore. His gentlemanly play and quiet personality, combined with frequent team changes and limited playoff success, kept Turgeon from receiving the acclaim his offensive numbers deserved. Still absent from the Hockey Hall of Fame despite his statistical case, Turgeon represents how even point-per-game players can somehow fly under the radar in NHL history. Vincent Damphouse was a model of consistency throughout his 18-year NHL career, recording 1,205 points and winning a Stanley Cup with Montreal in 1993. The skill center registered 7 seasons of 80-plus points and proved adaptable to different systems and line mates as he moved between teams. Damphouse's lack of individual awards or league-leading statistics belies his value as a top-line center capable of elevating the play of those around him. His contributions to Montreal's unexpected 1993 Cup run, where he led all playoff scorers with 23 points, demonstrated his ability to perform when games mattered most. Yet Damphouse's name rarely enters discussions of the best forwards of his era, a testament to how consistent excellence without spectacular peaks can go underappreciated. Alexander Mogilny possessed perhaps the most electric talent of any player on this list. The Russian winger scored goals at an astonishing rate, including 76 in the 1992-93 season with Buffalo, a total that tied him for the league lead with Teemu Selanne. Mogilny combined blazing speed with a lethal shot and creative playmaking ability, making him one of the most dangerous offensive weapons of his generation. Despite his talent in a career that included a Stanley Cup, 1,032 points, and a triple gold club membership, Stanley Cup, World Championship, and Olympic gold, Mogilny waited 14 years after retirement for his Hockey Hall of Fame induction. His relatively short peak years and struggles with injuries and anxiety issues cut into his career totals, but those who played with and against Mogilny recognized a game-breaking talent whose best moments rivaled those of any player in hockey history. These offensive stars remind us that even point production, the most straightforward measure of hockey success, doesn't guarantee recognition, whether due to timing, personality, team circumstances, or simply bad luck. Some of hockey's most productive players have seen their achievements fade from memory more quickly than their numbers would suggest. Their stories represent hockey's loss when it fails to properly celebrate offensive excellence in all its forms. Goaltenders often bear the heaviest burden in hockey, their mistakes immediately visible, their successes quickly forgotten. While names like Roy, Brodzier, and Hasek dominate goaltending discussions, NHL history includes several netminders whose excellence was obscured by circumstances beyond their control. These goalies posted remarkable statistics and carried their teams for years despite receiving limited recognition from the broader hockey world. Tomas Vokoun established himself as one of the NHL's most consistent goaltenders despite spending much of his career with struggling teams. Playing primarily with Nashville and Florida, Vokoun routinely faced among the highest shot totals in the league while maintaining impressive save percentages. His .917 career save percentage ranks among the best in his era, an achievement made more remarkable considering the defensive limitations of the teams he played behind. Unlike many elite goaltenders, Vokoun rarely had the opportunity to showcase his talents in the playoffs due to his team's competitive disadvantages. His 2 All-Star appearances barely hint at his true value, a goaltender who routinely stole games for undermanned squads and whose advanced statistics reveal a player who outperformed his environment year after year. Curtis Joseph won 454 games during his NHL career, the 7th highest total in league history, yet he remains absent from a Hockey Hall of Fame. Cujo reached the 30-win mark in a season an impressive 10 times despite never playing for a true dynasty or collecting significant individual hardware. Joseph's athletic, acrobatic style made him one of the most entertaining goaltenders to watch, and his playoff performances, particularly with Edmonton and Toronto, cemented his reputation as a big-game performer. His .917 save percentage across 133 playoff games demonstrates his ability to elevate his play in crucial moments. Despite these accomplishments, Joseph's lack of a Stanley Cup or Vezina trophy has kept him on the outside of goaltending greatness discussions, an omission that overlooks his remarkable consistency and competitiveness over a 19-year career. John Vanbiesbrouck stood tall in an era of giants, proving that a 5 feet 8 inches goaltender could excel in the modern NHL. The Beezer compiled 374 career wins, highlighted by his Vezina Trophy winning season with the Rangers in 1985-86 and his performance leading the expansion Florida Panthers to the Stanley Cup Final in 1996. Vanbiesbrouck's quick reflexes and technical soundness made him one of the league's most reliable goaltenders throughout the late 1980s and 1990s. Despite his success, Vanbiesbrouck's accomplishments are rarely mentioned alongside contemporaries with similar statistics but more playoff success. His career demonstrates how team circumstances can overshadow individual excellence. Had he played behind stronger defensive teams or in larger markets for his entire career, Vanbiesbrouck's legacy might match his statistical achievements. These goaltending greats remind us that the position's unique challenges make fair evaluation particularly difficult. A goaltender can only stop the shots he faces, and those who excel despite challenging team environments deserve special recognition. Their stories illustrate how circumstance, timing, and factor beyond individual control shape hockey legacies, sometimes obscuring greatness that was hiding in plain sight throughout remarkable careers. Even in today's NHL, where advanced statistics and widespread media coverage shine light on previously overlooked aspects of the game, certain players continue to receive less recognition than their performance warrants. The modern era has its own collection of underrated stars, players whose contributions to team success remain undervalued by many fans and analysts despite their consistent excellence on the ice. Tomas Plekanec served as a Montreal Canadiens defensive backbone for over a decade, taking on the toughest matchups against opposing stars while still contributing reliable offensive numbers. The Czech center's two-way game made him invaluable to Montreal's system, regularly logging difficult minutes against top competition while maintaining positive possession metrics. His trademark turtleneck became a symbol of quiet reliability in a market known for its intense scrutiny of players. Plekanec recorded 6 20-goal seasons and finished with 608 points in 1,001 NHL games. Impressive total for a player who prioritized defensive responsibilities throughout his career. Despite his importance to the Canadian success, Plekanec never received a Zelka Trophy nomination or All-Star selection, a reflection of how even in the modern era, defensive specialists can go unrecognized despite their crucial contributions to team success. Loui Eriksson's career represents how quickly perception can change in modern hockey. During his Dallas Stars years, Eriksson established himself as one of the league's most complete wingers, recording 3 consecutive 70-plus point seasons while playing responsible defensive hockey. His hockey sense and positioning made him effective in all situations, and his 2011 selection to the NHL All-Star Game recognized his emerging talent. After trade to Boston, Eriksson continued his two-way excellence but saw his offensive number decline slightly while playing in the Bruins' structured system. A subsequent contract with Vancouver that failed to meet expectations unfortunately overshadowed his previous accomplishments, leading many to forget the elite two-way player who had been one of the league's most efficient scorers for half a decade. At his peak, Eriksson's combination of scoring, touch, and defensive awareness made him one of hockey's most valuable wingers, a reality that has been obscured by recency bias and contract discussions. Shea Weber's thunderous slap shot and physical presence made him impossible to ignore, yet his overall impact on games still managed to be underappreciated throughout his career. The defenseman's intimidating style combined old-school physicality with modern offensive contributions, making him one of the most feared players in the league. Weber's leadership qualities earned him the captaincy in both Nashville and Montreal, where teammates respected his professionalism and consistent performance. While he received Norris Trophy nominations and All-Star selections, Weber never collected the individual hardware that many felt his play deserved. His performance in the 2021 playoff run, helping Montreal reach the Stanley Cup final while playing through a serious foot injury that ultimately ended his career, exemplified the quiet toughness that defined his approach to the game. As analytics evolved to better capture defensive impact, Weber's value became more apparent, evidence that even obvious excellence can be underrated when it comes in less flashy forms. These modern stars demonstrate that being underrated isn't merely a historical phenomenon. Even in today's game, with its emphasis on data and detailed analysis, certain player types and contributions continue to receive less attention than they deserve. Their stories remind us to look beyond obvious statistics and highlight real plays to appreciate the full spectrum of hockey excellence that exists in every era of the game. As we look back at these underrated players throughout NHL history, certain patterns emerge that help us understand why some exceptional hockey talents don't receive the recognition they deserve. The stories of these overlooked stars teach us important lessons about how we evaluate greatness in hockey and what truly matters in the pursuit of team success. These underrated players collectively demonstrate that hockey excellence comes in many forms. While goal scorers and offensive defensemen naturally attract attention, the game's fabric is woven with contributors whose impacts are felt in subtle ways. The perfect positioning that prevents a scoring chance, the reliable face-off win in the defensive zone, the calm puck retrieval under pressure. These elements rarely make highlight packages but often determine the outcome of close games and championship series. The players we've examined remind us to look beyond obvious statistics to appreciate hockey's complexity and the many ways athletes can influence outcomes. The importance of recognizing unheralded excellence extends beyond fairness to the players themselves. It shapes how we understand the game and what we value in team construction. Many of the underrated players we discussed were critical components of championship teams precisely because they excelled in areas that complement more celebrated stars. The defensive forward who shuts down the opposition's top scorer allows offensive talents more freedom. The steady defenseman who never makes mistakes provides a foundation for his partner to take calculated risks. The goaltender who gives his team confidence plays a psychological role that statistics can't fully capture. Perhaps most importantly, these players embody hockey values that transcend individual recognition. selflessness, consistency, adaptability, and quiet leadership. They accepted difficult assignments, adapted their games to team needs, and performed under pressure without seeking personal glory. In doing so, they represent the sport at its best, a team game where collective achievement matters more than individual accolades. The NHL's most underrated players deserve to have their stories told and their contributions remembered, not simply as a corrective to historical oversight, but because their careers help us understand what truly matters in hockey. As the game evolves and analytics provide new ways to measure performance, perhaps future generations will better appreciate the full spectrum of hockey excellence. Until then, these underappreciated stars remind us to look beyond the obvious, to value substance over flash, and to recognize that greatness in hockey often hides in plain sight, waiting for those who understand the game to truly see it.